Asteria says, "Well, Apella can't wait any longer. Let our voices be heard there."
Priesti says, "Here Alelangel soul."
Apella says, "Adine Odgar is at the gate." Socrates Dionysus is at the gate. Asteria heads in front of the thrones, ready to take the lead. Warm greetings and welcome, command and citizens of Sparta. You may all be seated.
Alelangel soul follows ambassador and stops seeing her and nods her welcome.
Asteria addresses a smile and a nod of greeting to the Counsellor as she walks by. Then narrows her eyes, focusing on her upcoming speech. Valiant warriors of Sparta and honorable citizens, we gather once again in this sacred assembly, as our fathers wished and as established by the immortal laws of Lycurgus, and we do so as the falling of the first leaves heralds the arrival of autumn. As every year, it does not come suddenly, but announces itself with signs that the expert eye can discern: the morning sunset of the Pleiades, which puts an end to navigation, the southward flight of the cranes fleeing the coming rigors, the cease of the Etesian winds, leaving the seas at the mercy of winter storms. It is the season when Demeter retreats after bestowing her summer gifts, But this does not mean that human activity ceases. It is the season when grapes become wine, when olives are pressed for the oil that will light up the long nights, when sailors pull their ships ashore and use their time to repair the sails, caulk the hull, and prepare new ropes. What then does autumn teach us? It teaches us the virtue of foresight. The farmer does not give himself over to idleness after the harvest, but threshes the grain, prepares supplies in the barns, and gathers wood for the winter. In the same way, the wise ruler does not wait for the storm to hit the city but prepares defenses in advance. May our deliberations therefore benefit from these lessons and prepare Sparta for future challenges. As Persephone prepares to descend into the realm of Hades, taking with her the memory of the fruitful summer, may she find a land made more fertile by rest when Demeter calls her back from the underworld. With these words I declare the session open. May the gods grant us strength and courage in battle. Sparta blessed by the gods to protect us forever. Haro. Sparta blessed by the gods to protect us forever. Haro. Priestess says, "Are you worshipping?"
Alelangel soul says, Aro. Aro.
Socrates says, Haru. Haru.
Asteria says, after her speech concludes she walks back to her throne.
Alelangel soul follows ambassador and goes to her seat.
Asteria smiles at Counsellor as she checks what is next task to perform. Nothing more than a beautiful melody pleases the gods, who will play the zither, drawing their blessings upon us.
Alelangel soul turns her sight to Ambassador. If you let me, I can play a delighted melody for all presents.
Priestess says, "Are you discussing something?" Asteria says, "Please do, Counsellor." Queen says, "Move slowly trough the tunnels of hidden Apella library to the secret doors." Asteria says, as she hears noises coming from the hidden passage, she turns her head and notices with surprise the queen. Asteria stands at once. Queen says, approaches the throne from behind. Asteria says, Herida, salutes. Queen salutes.
Socrates salutes.
Asteria says, Here, Queen, our hearts rejoice seeing you where you belong. Priestess says, are you discussing something?
Alelangel soul goes to her zither and start play a nice song. She stops when sees the queen entering the place and bows welcome my queen and then goes back to keep playing it. Eurede. Salutes.
Queen says, Tau epsilon Spartans, some matters of state keep me today away from my residential villa, but am glad the Apella started already.
Pirate says, Χαίρετε Queen. Priestess says, Χαίρετε Queen.
Queen says, please be seated, she adds looking at the Counsellor and Ambassador, then sits herself on the throne. Asteria says, as required by our rules, I took the liberty of opening the meeting in your absence, but I am pleased to hand back the lead to you. Asteria goes back to her seat as requested.
Alelangel Soul puts more effort to play a melodious song to please our queen and all presents.
Queen says, beautiful music counselor and ambrosia for my ears. Asteria admires the grace and lightness of the touch on the strings, and the beautiful melody they manage to produce. Queen says, asterisk evades asterisk. Asteria claps hands. Queen says, thank you for your beautiful music counselor. Please return to your seat.
Alelangel Soul smiles while stand up. It's a pleasure to serve you. My queen bows respectfully and goes back to her seat. Eurede. Salutes.
Queen salutes. I now call upon Hieros to perform Apella opening prayers. Priestess shouts, Hestia, you who tend the holy house of the Lord Apollo, the far shooter at goodly Pytho, with soft oil dripping ever from your locks, come now into this house, come, having one mind with Zeus the all-wise, draw near, and withal bestow grace upon my song.
Χαίρετε Socrates.
We offer you a libation of sweet honeyed wine. Hail Almighty Zeus the Thunderer. Hail all the gods of Olympus. Priestess shouts. We offer you a libation of sweet honeyed wine. May the gods bless all in attendance of these prayers.
Socrates pours libations of honey-sweet wine from his chalice for the gods. Today we will celebrate the great mysteries of Demeter and Persephone to coincide with the bringing in of the harvest. Socrates pours libations of honey-sweet wine from his chalice for the goddesses. Hymn to Persephone. Persephone, blessed daughter of great Zeus, sole offspring of Demeter, come and accept this gracious sacrifice. Much honored spouse of Platon, discreet and life-giving, you command the gates of Hades in the bowels of the earth, love Latrest, Praxidike, pure bloom of Deo, mother of the Furies, queen of the netherworld whom Zeus sired in clandestine union. Mother of loud-roaring and many-shaped Eubuleus, radiant and luminous playmate of the seasons, August, almighty, maiden rich in fruits, you alone are beloved of mortals. In spring you rejoice in the meadow breezes, and you show your holy figure in shoots and green fruits. You were made a kidnapper's bride in the fall, and you alone are life and death to toiling mortals, O Persephone, for you always nourish all and kill them too. Hearken, O blessed goddess, and send forth the earth's fruits. You who blossom in peace, in soft-handed health, and in a life of plenty that ferries old age in comfort to your realm, O queen, and to that of mighty Platon. Socrates pours libations from his chalice. To Eleusinian Demeter. Deo, divine mother of all, goddess of many names, august Demeter, nurturer of youths, and giver of prosperity and wealth. You nourish the ears of corn, O giver of all, and you delight in peace and in toilsome labor.
Priestess says, are you discussing something?
Socrates says, present at sowing, reaping, and threshing, O spirit of unripe fruit, you dwell in the sacred valley of Eleusis. Charming and lovely, you give sustenance to all mortals, and you were the first to yoke the ploughing oxen to send up from below, a rich and lovely harvest for mortals. Through you there is growth and blooming, O illustrious companion of Bromios, and, torch-bearing and pure one, you delight in the summer's yield. From beneath the earth you appear, and to all you are gentle, O holy and youth-nurturing lover of children and of fair offspring. You yoke your chariot to bridle dragons, and round your throne you whirl and howl in ecstasy. Only daughter with many children and many powers over mortals, you manifest your myriad faces to the variety of flowers and sacred blossoms.
Priestess says, "Are you worshipping?"
Socrates says, "Come, blessed and pure one, and laden with the fruits of summer, bring peace, together with the welcome rule of law, riches too, and prosperity, and health that governs all." Socrates pours libations of honey-sweet wine from his chalice for the gods. May the proceedings of Apella now begin. Socrates salutes.
Queen salutes. Thank you for your prayers, Hieros and Lammy. I call now upon Counsellor to deliver her reports.
Alelangel soul stands up with her scrolls ready in front to Queen. Alelangel soul opens her scroll and nods waits to order of the queen at your command my queen.
Queen says, "Please go on, dear."
Alelangel soul starts to read. This Sunday we had our bard gathering. On a radiant Sunday, the Spartan plaza was filled with a serene and welcoming atmosphere, perfect for the poetry reading. 3 readers stood at the center, each with their own style and voice, ready to share verses that evoked deep emotions and landscapes of the soul. The murmur of the crowd gradually faded, allowing the words to float in the air like delicate melodies. Alelangel soul keeps reading. 5 special guests accompanied the gathering, enriching the experience with their presence and reflections. Some shared brief comments at the end of each reading, weaving a bridge between the poems and everyday life. Others simply enjoyed in silence, their gazes revealing the strength of what they had heard. The communion between readers and guests created an intimate circle in the midst of the town's usual bustle. The session ended with the promise of reunite again the next Sunday with the best poetry in the world. We thank Sabre and Jolie for hosting this and every Sunday our traditional bard gathering. Alelangel soul says, keeping her sight to all presents, we invite all Spartans to come to our next bard gathering this next Sunday while close her scroll.
Asteria claps hands with a smile. Queen says, asterisk deviates asterisk.
Alelangel soul turns her sight to her queen while opens the other scroll. At your command my queen, we inform our training reports too.
Queen says, please do.
Alelangel Soul starts reading this Sunday. We have our training session. Under the blazing midday sun, two warriors faced each other in a sword training duel. Their movements were agile and firm, and each clash of steel made the air vibrate with energy. There was no enmity in their gestures, but rather the will to challenge one another, driven by respect and the desire to grow in discipline. Alelangel Soul keeps reading in the midst of combat, their eyes met with complicity, reminding them that friendship bound them beyond the rigor of training. Each strike was a shared lesson, and each defense a proof of trust. Thus, through sweat and effort, the warriors found in the challenge a way to strengthen not only their bodies, but also the unbreakable bond that kept them united.
Asteria smiles slightly because this is one of the reports she is most looking forward to.
Alelangel ends her reports. We thanks the ambassador Asteria for participating in this rigorous training, showing that she is a truly Spartan daughter. And turns her sight to all Spartans presents. We invite all sons and daughters of Sparta to participate to our next combat training session to show your strength and honor, and close her skull while bows respectfully to her queen. That's all I have to inform my queen. Eubede. Seluch.
Priestess says, are you discussing something? Asteria claps hands. Queen says, asterisk eboots asterisk. Thank you for your comprehensive reports, Counsellor. You may be seated. Queen salutes.
Alelangel Soul keeps her scrolls and goes back to her seat.
Queen says, I now summon ambassador for her weekly reports on management and army. General is absent today. May the gods bless his voyages. Asteria nods and puts on the ground the scroll she was tracing signs on and stands. Herida salutes. Queen salutes. Asteria says, Your Majesty, within our walls dwells the future of Sparta, and I bring tidings of how that future takes shape. The population remains stable and industrious, O Queen, its numbers remain stable, a small but solid core that guarantees the prosecution of events. Queen says, nods. Asteria says, that is all about it. Now, honored Queen, as you know, the winds of change stir beyond our borders, and it falls to me to illuminate this assembly on the shifting tides of alliance and enmity. I await your permission. Queen says, permission granted. Asteria starts talking with a strange hint of anxiety in the voice, but she speaks like nothing was wrong. Tonight I bring news from a remote land that has never been mentioned in any of our scrolls. It seems to have appeared suddenly, as if just emerging from the mists of time. Its name is Midgard, your majesty. Queen says. Looks at ambassador with curiosity. Asteria says, I went there myself because I wanted to report only what my eyes had seen, not empty talk born out of fear and foolishness. However, sometimes I wish I hadn't, she says as a sudden shiver shakes her body. Asteria pauses briefly as if finding it difficult to continue the story. It is a wild and inhospitable land, O Queen, a dangerous land that shapes those who live there. For one must struggle with nature no less than with other men. Even the most resolute soul can be intimidated by it. Although mine is still shaken, I will try to describe it for you. Queen says, enemies to the east, enemies to the west, south. Our fate is unseen, but certain are the winds of war. Please continue, sister. Asteria says, I hope we will have nothing to do with them, my lady, especially after what I am about to tell you. What I am about to say is true, and I saw it with my own eyes. Queen says, feels anxiety and curiosity at the same time, fixing her gaze on Ambassador. Asteria says, as soon as we disembarked from the ship, we found ourselves in a land with a leaden sky, where flocks of vultures circled incessantly. The air was cold and our limbs were lashed by an icy wind that chilled us to the bone. There was not a soul to be seen around us, only rocky peaks that rose up to touch the clouds and could only be accessed through narrow passages, she says, recalling those moments with obvious discomfort. We took courage and began to climb a path that opened up beside us. It was so narrow that two men side by side could not walk on it, and beneath our feet lay an abyss, hidden by a blanket of fog and darkness. But the men of the north walk these paths, so we will too, we said to ourselves. She adds in a resolute tone of voice. As we climbed, the wind grew stronger, as if Midgard itself wanted to repel us. At times, stones broke away and fell into the abyss below with a dull thud. Our hearts were pounding, but after what seemed like an eternity, the path suddenly widened and opened onto a flat plateau covered with soft grass. However, our relief was short-lived, she says, stopping suddenly with a dramatic pause. Queen says. Leans forward in the throne awaiting the rest of the story to be told. Asteria nods slowly and, gathering her courage, resumes her story. Poles, O Queen, dozens of them stood along the perimeter of the plateau. They were stuck deep into the ground, like sentinels, and a human skull was impaled on each one. Dozens of skulls, some still with shreds of flesh and hair, others reduced to white bone, smoothed by time and weather. Human bones were scattered on the ground, the remains of those whose heads had been severed. Many of them had already been cleaned by vultures in time. It was a warning, my lady, to anyone who dared to cross the borders of that kingdom. We decided not to go any further, as it was clear who we were dealing with, fierce and brutal warriors who jealously guard the secrets of their land. We returned to our ships not out of fear, O Queen, but only because it was our duty to warn Sparta of the dangers that lurk in those places. Queen says, it seemed a dangerous mission, sister. I'm glad you returned safe and sound. Asteria says, none of us expected to find something like this, O Queen. I am willing to go back and explore more though if you so wish. I am not afraid. It is just so unsettling. Queen says, I wish not. We will send there rather some garrison of hoplites. Asteria nods with a mixture of relief and gratitude. Queen says, I don't like your life at risk, Ambassador. There will surely come time of war when you will have to, as I myself take a spear in your hand, but not unprepared and without God's blessing. Asteria says, Yes, my queen, I will always be ready whatever Sparta needs me for. Queen says, smiles at the courageous words of her sister. This is the Spartan spirit we love to see. Is there anything else you wish to report? Asteria shakes head. That is all I had to say for this night. My queen at it took me many moons to reach that place, and even more to be back. Their cold and stormy waters didn't help our triremes. Priestess says, Are you discussing something? Queen says, Nods. Thank you for your reports. You may be seated. Queen salutes. Asteria says, Herida, salutes. Queen says, I was absent recent days from my duties due to some health issues. Our medics are working tirelessly to find a cure. So I ask our Hieros to include my well-being in the prayers to the gods. Now,
Socrates pours libations of honey-sweet wine from his chalice for the gods. To Asclepios. Asclepios, Lord Paean, healer of all, you charm away the suffering of men in pain. Come, mighty and soothing, bring health, and put an end to sickness and the harsh fate of death. Helper, blessed spirit of growth and blossoming, you ward off evil, honoured and mighty scion of Phoebos Apollon. Enemy of disease, whose blameless consort is Hygeia, come, O blessed one, a saviour and bring life to a good end. I now call on Priestess Lamy to say closing Apella prayers.
Priestess shouts, I will sing of Zeus, chiefest among the gods and greatest, all-seeing, the Lord of all, the fulfiller who whispers words of wisdom to Themis as she sits leaning towards him. Be gracious, all-seeing son of Kronos, most excellent and great. We offer you a libation of sweet honeyed wine. May Zeus and the gods bless this city, its king, its princess regent, its royals, and all of its citizens. We offer you a libation of sweet honeyed wine. May the gods bless all who attended these prayers.
Socrates pours libations of honey-sweet wine from his chalice for the gods. Socrates salutes.
Queen says, "Thank you for your prayers, Hieros." Queen salutes. At the end of today, Apella, I would usually bring the words once said. But today, I will read upon you a poem that I wrote recently. Asteria listens curiously. Queen says it's called Voice of the Queen. By Queen Aurora, September 20th, 25. I remember my father. His red cloak and golden laurel. His voice carrying over the harbor winds, teaching me that love for Sparta was fiercer than love for life itself. The raids came swift. Torches on the prows. The crash of oars as if the sea itself was forced to bow before our fury. I watched the fires rise on Persian shores, their glow mirrored in the king's bronze spear. He told me, "Daughter, the dead are never lost. They march with us unseen, each step an echo of their courage." Now the halls are quieter, the voices of warriors scattered. But in the silence I still hear them. My father's laughter, his wise words, as the battle cries of brothers long gone, woven into Sparta eternal song. Smiles.
Socrates claps hands.
Asteria claps hands, drawing a sigh. This is beautiful, O Queen, and brings back memories of our glorious times. Priestess says, "Are you discussing something?" Queen says, "I suppose to read it on last bard meeting." But wasn't well enough to do that, however happy to share it with you. I thank you for today's Apella and wish you good night. Asteria says, "I am glad I could enjoy it before others then." Herida salutes. Queen says, "Smiley face." Asteria says, "Have a peaceful rest, O Queen." Queen says, nods at the present and vanishes behind hidden Apella gates. Apella says, Adine Odgar is at the gate. Asteria says, I have to go too. Have a good night, Socrates. We meet tomorrow.
Socrates says, good night, Asteria.
Asteria says, Herida salutes.
Socrates salutes.